So we're gonna make a new NMR video here, and I'll start from scratch. So I'll be jiggling this camera around a bit, trying to hold it. So there's a switch right down here to turn the air on. So when you go to run your NMR, you have to turn on the air compressor, the source of air through a tube on the ground. That's actually gonna go here and spin your sample for you. So we'll go over this real quick. And this is kind of important. So you can almost see there is 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of adjustment knobs. When you're running a standard sample, in the corner, there's an eject button. When you push it, it will eject your spinner, bring it up. The one thing that has happened though, and this is very important, this eject button, the spring inside is not as strong as it used to be. So what happens is the button doesn't come all the way out sometimes. And when that happens, inside here, right under this cover, some of the air doesn't make it to spin. So you don't have as much air to spin it as you would think. So if you're having some trouble spinning this, you really should pull this knob out if it has been ejected previously, right? So you make sure the knob's all the way out. And next is this lever. So you put your hand right on this lever, because what'll happen is, and I'll show you in a moment, you put your spinner in this hole, and a lot of times it kind of semi-floats. With this lever, when you lift it up, it lets your sample drop to the bottom of the probe. And then when you put that lever back down, it should start spinning. So we'll walk you through that. This knob, no one should touch. It's only for when we run what's called like super prep. And that's a different video that I've already made, so don't touch this one. And when we have trouble spinning, this is another knob that's actually very important. And I don't know if I can get this, but on this knob, you can barely make it out. There's a little black magic marker, and at the moment, it's sitting at 10 or 11 o'clock. With this knob, if you turn it to 12 o'clock, so you go from 10 or 11, you turn it right to 12. That's as far clockwise as this knob will go. What that does, this allows a little more or less air inside here. So when you have trouble spinning, what I'll do is I'll turn this up while watching down there. As soon as I see it start to spin, I'll back this off again, back to say 10 or 11. And the reason why is this. If you put too much air in, because it's at 12, sometimes that your NMR tube down there will rise up about half a centimeter. So, and then it'll only be spinning very slowly. So what happens is you can't shim in or get a proper signal from it. So it's kind of tricky that way. So if you're having trouble getting this spinning, you sometimes have to put this up to 12 o'clock to start it getting spinning and then back it off again. Right? And then you always take another look down there to make sure that your sample hasn't risen up a little bit and is starting to spin just slowly. So the most important thing is to make sure that your sample is spinning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this down for a sec, and I'm going to start this off. So you can see here, you take your NMR tube, there we go, your NMR tube, glass tube, you put it inside the white plastic spinner, and you can see the black marks on the top of the spinner. It's very important to look at those black marks. When this thing drops down in the probe, so drops down, you want to be able, your eyeballs locate those black marks, and as soon as you put the lever down to turn the spin on, you should see it start to spin, and then spin so fast, you can no longer make out those individual black marks. This is your depth gauge, so you make sure that your NMR tube is sitting right in there. And then the most important thing after you measure this, see if I can get this, there we go, with a Kim wipe, you at 90 degrees, almost like this, you make sure you wipe with a Kim wipe the white plastic carefully, because you don't want to have any oils on your skin left on that spinner, because when it drops to the bottom of the probe, those oils will build up on the probe itself. All right. So you gently put that in and see how it's kind of like jiggling there. And then this lever, you lift the lever up and down it goes. And it's so dark down there, the camera's not gonna pick it up. But what you can do You get used to it with your eyeballs. You can still see it, and you turn the spinner on, and thankfully I can see it is now spinning very well. The other trick is people use their cell phones. They put a light on, so they hold their cell phone with light and their head's above it and they're staring down there, and that lets them see it very well. Once it's spinning, you shut this, go have a seat over here. Okay, see if I can capture this. So here's our NMR computer, and what you'll do, I usually go on the taskbar itself. The AII is what you click on, and I should try and go, this is how it opens up, this is how it looks. You can see your information here. Number of scans is there, receiver gain. The one you really want to look at sometimes is the number of scans. The other thing you want to look at is the prompt. So see how it says H1, it's got a little arrow? So when you type, this is where you'll see it change. When you're running a carbon, I'm going to type in NU space C13. NU space C13. You hit enter, it switches to that prompt. So you'll run the C13 program. We want to run a normal proton, so I'll switch it back. NU space H1. Enter. So now we're back to that prompt. So what we're going to do now, the first step is you literally type in shim. Type in shim, enter. See the yellow window pops up and it tells you information. It gives you an option. Some people who have TMS in their sample already, it automatically zeroes for you, but I would recommend for us, just run shim only, right? So you go over here and click shim. And now you get a green box. This could take 3 to 4 minutes sometimes to finish. And what you can look at now on the screen, that is the FID. And what you can do now is you can click on, in seconds, that's the FID, free induction decay. You can switch to ppm. So now that FID becomes what your spectrum literally looks like at the moment. And clearly, I put in a reference too, so you can see right here, this is the TMS peak in the referencings. If you have a lot of TMS in your sample, you obviously furthest right should see a nice big singlet. And you can see that today, it's just slightly below 0. So when we're done shimming, one of the things that I do first on the day is I adjust the field offset to make sure it's ballpark there. But as long as your TMS peak is close to 0, that's great. We can account for that when we run our spectrum and process it. So we'll wait. Shimming. I'm trying to think what else is important. Right here, you can click on crosshair and obviously bring that up on screen if you want. Click that off because it's kind of annoying. If you switch the auto scale off, you can actually use the up and down arrow key on the keyboard to make it bigger or smaller. Otherwise, they default to auto scale being on and it does it for you. Grid, you can have the grid there or not. Great. Shimming is done. And you can see with your own eyes that you've got nice looking peaks. If your sample was not spinning properly, or if your sample was elevated up, you shouldn't let it continue shimming because it can really screw up the field, meaning change numbers in the program that really puts your field way out of whack. So it's always important to have a signal there, so you should watch right away and you can tell whether things look good or not. So now you're going to type in ZG, so ZG, enter. Now it's waiting to start scanning. The other thing I should have showed you is, I'm going to hit cancel for a moment. Let's say that you had a sample in there that needs more than 1 scan. It defaults to 1. So if your sample for proton is concentrated enough, you don't have to change it. But what you can do is type in NS, enter, and it asks you, how many scans do you want to run? So you can switch it to 8 is the normal number if you're running a solid you dissolved in chloroform, because it's not quite as concentrated. But I've only ever run either 1 or 8 normally. So 1 scan is good enough, but that's how you change it. So now we go back to starting the scan, ZG. and it's going to bring up this. It's asking you what's your file name. You have to pick a file name. So you would literally type it in right here. So I could put in, I don't know, stuff. So I'm running stuff. And then you can select a folder that you want to save it in. So let's say 427, I don't know, I can put it here. Double click, save stuff. As soon as I'm gonna open that folder, now I'm gonna save it. So you click save, and guess what, it's off and running. It's gonna do one scan. One scan doesn't take very long. So you're waiting, we're waiting. Any second now. There it is. So this scan is done. Now that you have acquired it in the AII window, now to process it, where am I? You go to the NMR program, nuts. When you first open for the first time, you get your OK box, you say OK. You have to go up into File, and you have to run a macro. The macro you want to run is H1 1D. Gotta find it, there we go. It's hard to hold the camera and do the same time. So you want to run this program on the file you just acquired. So you double click. Now it says, what file are you going to use this macro on? So I saved it in 427, and I believe I called it stuff. Right there. So you double click or open it, and it automatically ran the macro on it because the previous file was saved as an FID. The NUTS program runs Fourier transform on it and turns it into this nice signals you have, and the NUTS window is where you process it. What's kind of weird is when it immediately opens up, it's the comment box. You would think it would say title, but it doesn't. So I'm typing in stuff because that's the name that will appear, and I hit enter. So here's the thing I want. One of the first things you do is you find a peak that you know. Now because this has a TMS peak, now I gotta put the camera down. You put your cursor on top of the peak. You click the left mouse button and hold the left mouse button down. Then you go to the keyboard and hit V for value. You can release the mouse now, and it brings up this little window that says, okay, what do you want to set that peak to? I want to set it to 0. And as soon as I hit enter, it readjusts it. So you have properly set your spectra's scale. The next thing you want to do, go up into process and click on baseline correct. Now what's interesting is, and I'll do it again down here, whatever you type, this program has 2-letter commands. So if I type in B, C, do you see how I didn't have to hit enter? You type in BC, the second you type in that second letter, boom, it does it automatically. So I'm going to show you how important and strange this is in this program, hitting enter when in doubt, and this is why. I'm now going to type in the command D, P. Now do you see how without hitting enter, I instantly got the crosshairs for peak picking. Now watch what would have happened if I typed in DP and then I hit enter. As soon as I hit enter, you exit the subroutine that I was in, which was the peak picking one. So it's a little strange. If you have any doubt that you're stuck in some kind of subroutine in this window, all you have to do is hit enter 3 or 4 times, and you have exited out of anything you were in. But when you're in DP mode, you're gonna go over, and all you're gonna do is line up the vertical bar of the crosshair, right? And I'm kind of doing a sloppy job here. So what I normally do is this: I pick the peaks that you clearly can see are parts of doublets, triplets, etc. And if I had more time, I could zoom in and pick these 2. But I think you get the point. I picked a few peaks, so now I'm going to hit enter to exit DP mode. Now see how those little peak picking hash marks disappeared? For some strange reason, this software, when you exit DP mode, it does not automatically put your peaks up there. To bring them back, you on the keyboard hit Control P. Now let me as soon as I do that, Control P. Now to see how it brings up your peak picking numbers, and if I hit Control P, it takes them away. So Control P toggles your peak picking values. So we did the baseline correct, we did the peak picking. Now to use the zoom function, so you're looking at this, what if I want to get rid of this, a lot of this empty space? Normally, for a proton, normally you can double click anywhere on here, and if you double click, see how you enter zoom mode. If you hit enter, you'll exit, just like anything else. So you do the same thing you would in Word or anything. You click your left mouse button and then you highlight the region you want. So I normally always like to start just below 0. So I click with my left mouse button, holding it down, and I highlight. The normal convention is to go out to about 8 or 9. And the reason for that, is you like to be able to see where the aromatic or sp2 region is. So that is a nice zoom region. Now here's the trick. You release your mouse button to set the zoom region. You have to right mouse click only. Bink. And there you go. It zooms in on just what you highlighted. Here you hit enter, you exit zoom mode, you step back and say, wow, that's pretty good. The last step is to integrate. You type in ID. You don't hit enter, right? Because then you'll exit the ID mode, which is integration. The trick is this. You see your integral line. You see how it all fits on the screen. Sometimes, and there's a drag box over on the left. Now watch what happens when you click that drag button, and if I go up, see how you're making your integral goes like all crazy? You can drag it down so it fits on the screen. So that's one adjustment if you have to do it, is the drag box. The horizontal sections, if they look nice and horizontal, you're good. If for some strange reason it wasn't, what you would do to adjust that, if you had to do it, this one doesn't need it, it looks good as is, but if you need to adjust it, you would just type in B, and see how your crosshair changed to a different bold. If you hold your left mouse button down and drag the mouse to the right, see how you're changing the angle? You could go to the left. See how that adjusts the horizontal angling, if you had to. Then you release. To go back to your normal integration, you would only hit the enter button just once. Now you're in the normal one. To integrate, your cursor does not have to be right here. It could be anywhere. It's like a vertical line, so to speak. I want to integrate, if you can, from one side of the baseline to the other. This is very careful and very important. You click twice, once, twice. See how the second click set your starting line? So 2 clicks to start it. Go to the other side. 1 click will end it. So many students, and myself before, you get out of the sequence of 2 clicks to start, 1 to end it. So when in doubt, at that point, you would hit enter to exit, and then you would re-enter ID mode to make sure you're where it should be. This one, 2 clicks to start, 1 click to end it, 2 clicks to start, 1 to end it, and you can see the integrals you're getting. So let's say I integrated here to here, which is nothing. Oh, I don't like this integral, I have to get rid of it. To get rid of an integral, you click once only in the middle of it, and then you hit D for die, and it gets rid of it. So let's get the rest of this. 2 clicks to start, 1 to end. If I wanted, to me that could be separate, so you could integrate from here to the middle, there to there. Do I want to integrate the TMS? No. Now normally, I know that this one here, I know for sure that that's a methyl group. So if you click once in the middle of this integral, once only, and then you hit V for value, you get to type in what you're setting that integral to. So if there's 3 hydrogens there, I will put 3, enter, and it automatically sets all of your other integrals relative to it. So see this one here? Aha. So that looks like that's half of this. So this whole signal is a methyl group actually. This one integrates to 2, so that's a CH2 group. You can see how this is going. And this is also 1 See how that adds up to 1? This is, so this trans coupling, see how wide that splitting is? This is one signal from one hydrogen on a double bond, and that's the other one. Okay, so we have this. You hit enter to exit. Oh, the integrals went away. What do we do? Control I toggles whether you keep your integrals with the numbers. We like this. Now you're done. Before you print, this is an absolute. You must go into File, Save As. So let's say I'm gonna go, oh, I'm saving it in the 427, so I'm good. I'm gonna, if you originally called it stuff, but that previous file was an FID, now you're gonna save it. You put the word finished. So if you did experiment 1, when you're done processing it in the nuts window, you type in the word finished. You hit enter. That allows you to print this finished thing off. If you try to open up in the nuts window your previous AII acquired FID, you're gonna see a bunch of crap. So you're better off to save your work. And it's at this point that you can go into File, Print. Printer setup is kind of important because for some reason the software defaults to portrait. I like landscape. Then you could simply print once you make that change. And I think the only other thing I didn't mention in the video here, what if you want to get rid of peaks that you picked? Okay, you go into DP mode, and here's what happens. Whatever peak is closest to the cursor, so I'm going to kill off that one on the right. You hit K for kill. See how it got rid of it? If you want to get rid of all of them, you can simply just press and hold down K and it will get rid of all of them. So in DP mode, you can kill off the peak number. If you didn't like it, it was bad, that's closest. And let's say I could always go back and repick it again if I wanted. So that's how that works. So folks, that is exactly how you run and process a proton. And last but not least, before you hit this eject button, you should always have one of your hands over top like this. If your face is right here and you hit the eject button, it'll poke you in the eye. So you put a hand over it, and I'll try and hit the eject button without my hand there. We can watch it on film here. I'll try and do it slowly. Slowly. Aha, see if you hit it really slow, it'll eject up like that. Your hand should be there and grab it, right? So that's how it works.